So it's 9 o'clock, and this is the city council meeting for Minnetrista. What is the date today? The 28th. And we don't have a 29th this year, which is really good. So the 28th of February, 2023. This is just kind of for clarification. We had a regular meeting scheduled for the 22nd. We had a storm event, so we canceled that meeting. And this is the special meeting that we're holding to replace that meeting on the 22nd. So with that, well, we can forgo the Pledge of Allegiance today. Or do you guys all want to do Pledge of Allegiance?
I think we should do the pledge.
All right, we're going to do the pledge then.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So first of all, I'm Lisa Whalen, I'm the mayor, and to my left are Kathleen Refkin, Ann McGregor is absent, Peter Vickery, and Claudia Lacey, council members, and then we have on the end Allison Fauski, our city engineer with WSB. We also have our director of public works, Gary Peters, and then we have our director of administration, Ali Polfus, and Don Motzko, our city clerk. And to my right, we have Jasper Krugel, our city administrator, Brian Grimm, our finance director, and then we have our chief of police, Paul Falls. Next is approval of our agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? If none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Vickery. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. Next on our agenda, so first on our agenda, I should say, we have a special presentation by Mr. Hagan, who is with Ellers, our financing person. So you have an update.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, council members. Todd Hagan from Ellers and Associates to update you on our bond issue that's coming up slow but sure, right? We're moving right along. Quite a bit of things going on between now and the bond sale, actually scheduled for April 17th, if that's the schedule we're using. And so I do have in front of the council a modified pre-sale report. It's sort of modified from January 9th when I was here last, kind of talking about the two options that we were looking at, an up to $10 million bond or up to $8 million bond. So the council did choose the up to not to exceed $8 million bond. So I've sort of retailored that to that amount, and it appears we're under to some degree. The city did get a couple bids already, right, for some of the street improvements and mill and overlay. So 2 out of the 3 bids have come in already. There's one extra coming in more in, I think, March here, coming up. Early March 8th.
March 8th,
Yep. And then sort of we also want to keep in mind that we've got assessment hearings coming up on March 20th, and then, of course, awarding the contracts on March 20th. So we don't want to move too fast with the bond issue. We want to make sure that the dust has settled, so to speak, and we're kind of zeroing in on the bond issue. So just wanted to keep up with you folks. Don't normally come out for a lot of pre-sale reports in succession like this, but felt it necessary here to keep it kind of updated on that. So so we have redone sort of the estimated bond runs, so to speak. And like I said, we're kind of at a $7.965 million amount for the bond, so we're under the $8 million, and hopefully that'll come in too as we receive the third bid. We do again have some MSA funds, right, coming in for the mill and overlay projects to kind of keep the cost down as well. So we should be, right, in a perfect world under the $8 million when it comes time to sell the bonds. So interest rates are, so I thought I'd update you on where rates are at too. When I was here last on January 9th to today, rates have come down in the bond market. So we redid our estimated rates. We put a little cushion still on top of it because we don't want to think that everything's going to kind of be static between now and the bond sales. So we put a little bit of fluff in there, but looks like sort of the bond buyer index, the market itself, has come down 20 basis points or so. So 0.20 0% on that. Our pre-sale has come down a little under 80 basis points because we're seeing more bond sales in the market now than
Because
January
interest
was
rates
kind
are-
of slow, right? So didn't have a lot of comps and stuff, but we sold White Bear Lake yesterday and West St. Paul and some larger communities with a rating of your high, double A in the double A category. So things are looking good. Again, bonds are more like supply and demand than sort of following kind of the mortgage market, so to speak. So as we move
What were those
forward-
rates?
Yep.
What-
Oh,
And you said for White Bear Lake, what did
I
they get?
don't have those,
Oh,
but kind
okay.
of a trend. I was just kind
Okay.
of looking at it. But it's public knowledge. I'll send it over to you.
Yeah,
if you-
okay.
if you want. Yeah, just see what happened. I'm kind of curious of how many bids they got. I didn't quite see that. But
Yeah, that would be interesting.
yeah. We've been seeing some of that. So I'll try to, if I can, because I know we've sold for some larger suburbs, so I'll see what I've got there.
Okay.
So more of the long-term bonds, I know they've been issuing temporary bonds kind of lately too, because some of the project costs are a little bit up in the air. So, but yeah. So anyway, that's what we're looking at. So that's all good news as far as where the market is on that. And I guess so. What we did in this pre-sale report is, you chose the not to exceed 8 million. We moved the sale date to April 17th to allow for the assessment hearing to take place and awarding the contracts on March 20th. We can go through that sale day process, but I think you have just kind of one meeting, right, Brian? So what it does is sort of delays the bond sale down a couple weeks where we could strategize and do some other things to kind of move the bond sale up a little closer if you wanted to, or a little sooner.
It was in our packet, it talked about a committee or something.
Yeah, so what we've done with some cities that maybe there's, and that doesn't look like it's the case with you, but we can move the bond sale up a little sooner rather than later. So sometimes it's because maybe there's lots of bond sales kind of crashing at the same time, like Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays are pretty popular days for cities to meet. And we could kind of either move it off to a Tuesday, Wednesday, or even sell a bond on a Thursday, which is kind of interesting. Strategy from with one of my municipal advisors in the firm. Thursdays are kind of fun to sell bonds because really nobody else does, right? So everybody's looking at you then on that day. But so we could discuss here closing the bonds earlier than May 4th by having a bond resolution adopted on March 20th, right, when the assessment hearing is taking place and the awarding the bids is taking place, and we could set a bidding parameters and appoint a pricing committee. And so you would, in essence, adopt the bond resolution in form on March 20th. Again, we would approve a pricing committee, which is typically the mayor or a council member, kind of appointed by the mayor to sit in on that. We'd have city administrator, finance director, me, and our folks at Ellers to actually take bids on an off day, right? And so the parameters would be pretty simple. In this case, it's a new money, new project bond issue, so it really would be just a sort of award to the lowest bidder, right?
Bidder, right.
Bingo. That's kind of what we do anyway.
And Todd, the reason to do that is to kind of be able to do it sooner than later because of interest rates potentially going up again. I mean,
so however you feel.
Plus, then you're kind of already set to go, hit the pavement, so to speak.
Yeah. And it could be on an off day, or I could talk when I get this to our committee just to see what a kind of a different day would look like for Minnetrista, to see if that would be advantageous.
Well, I think the biggest reason is there's just the gap between March 20th and April 17th. I don't even think it's so much the off day, but there's basically a month versus. So that was, at least from my perspective, the bigger reason to have the pricing committee, so that there's not a month gap and we can close on get the money and sooner.
A little sooner,
Right.
a couple weeks sooner.
Right.
Because you kind of move ahead.
Okay.
You could, invest it sooner and all that good stuff too.
So do you want that today? Kind of
I think at least get that direction from council that we're going to do that format so that we know to bring that back on March 20th.
Okay.
Because otherwise it would just be more a normal close on April 17th.
Yeah.
So I guess if the council's
So you would
fine with that.
receive a bond resolution in form with a pricing committee concept in it on March 20th.
Doesn't the Federal Reserve meet in March? March, and that'll probably
could be.
raise
I can check on
rates.
that. You might know more about that than me.
Yeah. The Federal Reserve's meeting in March.
Okay. What day? Do we know?
I forget. But before the 20th, I'm sure. So.
Oh,
Interesting. Wow. We'll be ready.
yeah.
We're constantly trying to chase this, aren't we, you guys?
I know. Yeah.
I just looked it up. It's March 21st or 22nd, or those 2 days.
Well, look at us. But it, probably things would be priced, in anticipation of that. If I
And
know
you,
how the world
you built in about 0.5%.
cushion.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, what did they say? They were anticipating about another half, but they only went a quarter this
Probably
last
a
time.
quarter.
So they'll probably do another quarter, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean,
Reasonable.
what are you hearing? I mean, that's,
Yep. And then I was just going to say too. Then where we would have sold bonds on April 17th, I'd still come back and for transparency, right?
Right.
So this isn't a secret deal. It's to
Right.
say here's what we got on that
Mhm.
day. So
Okay.
earlier date. So yeah.
You mentioned selling the bonds at a premium in your introduction here, but I didn't see that in the models that you did, like on page 11 or so. How and then you mentioned the underwriters and the city share of that premium.
Yep.
How much do we get out of that?
Yeah, so because rates are so low right now still, bidders are bidding with a premium, right? So what their customers on the other side are doing is sort of giving that broker dealer who's going to bid on your bonds in cash, right? And in turn, the interest rate you're going to see and pay on will be higher, right, than the market rate. So when it comes time to sell the bonds in the morning of the bond sale, when we get a bunch of bids in, right, all these wonderful bids, we're going to tabulate those in a true interest cost calculation. So time value of money, present value is all going to be in there. So there's no sort of monkey business can go on, and they can't just screw around with their bid and win, and it's like a bad bid, right? So we typically then will call up finance, right, and administrator in the morning and say, what would you like to do with that premium, which is actually cash coming from the other side, right? And so typically if all your bids are in and everything's settled, there's no real sort of question about the project itself, like, hey, we need more money, Todd, yikes. Then we would apply the premium to lower the bond issue down, right? And that effectively sort of burns that yield back down to where it's supposed to be, right? So let's say a 4% coupon, or so to speak, on the bond issue would bring it back down to a 2 or a 3 or something like that, right? By putting the money, the cash back into the deal, lower the bond, so you're paying less debt service.
you're still paying the same interest rate, but you're
Yes.
paying on less.
Yeah. So this money kind of fell from the sky. So
Yeah.
to speak. It's like, wow, this is
It
magic.
grew on
right?
trees.
This is magic.
Wow.
It didn't come from the city. Where did it come from? Well, it came from like their customers to say, I'd rather have a bond with a 5% stamp on it
Yeah.
if rates are going to go up, because then I can sort of transfer it and move my money around rather than a 2% bond. I'm kind of stuck with it. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
so they're kind of sort of pricing their own bond when you think about it. They're sort of anticipating the market moving in a different direction, which is typically going to go up. Right?
Mhm.
So if we had higher interest rates now, and there was probably no thought of rates going up much more, we'd probably see, when I came back with the bids, we'd see the two columns, right? The interest rate you pay and the yield, right, that they get probably match up almost perfectly. I've seen that, I've been around a lot, I've seen that, and I've seen it turned around too.
Okay.
And that's kind of the reason. It's just like, if I'm gonna buy a bond, like a customer, like you or whatever out in the market from like a RBC or somebody that's sort of bidding on our bonds, you might say, hey, I would like a higher interest rate on this bond, if you're a heavy hitter, right, like maybe an insurance company or something that, moves their bonds around, and I want a higher interest rate. So I'm gonna give this, this brokerage firm.
It's like paying points.
Yeah,
Yeah.
points on a mortgage or something like that.
right.
Yeah. So, but that is really what we've been seeing in the last 6 years,
Okay.
8 years are these premiums, and it's not free money. So if you kept that money, right, you would probably be effectively paying that higher interest rate when you think about it. So
Mhm.
you really want to give it back, and they don't care because that's part of our bidding parameters. We say, hey, we have the ability to adjust each maturity and we have the ability to adjust the par amount of the bond prior to sort of locking in, right? So we let them know we're gonna be moving it around if we need to. And then we will re-amortize it too that morning, right? So we might get higher interest rates at the top and lower interest rates at the bottom now, or they jump around, right? They're still fixed, but they're jumping around, it's not just ascending. We will, lower the bond issue and then re-amortize too. So it's level for you folks, when you pay the bond bill, yeah. Because we don't want all of a sudden, my favorite word, a wonky kind of debt service schedule, right? It's gotta be somewhat predictable.
Right, somewhat predictable, right?
Yeah.
Does that answer?
Not completely.
Okay.
Maybe I missed something, but so the city, would the city keep any of that premium, I guess? is
You
what-
can.
Okay.
You can
But-
keep all of it, some of it, or none of it.
Okay,
Yep.
but as you were saying, putting it back in.
We usually give it back to them. And then it's odd because we'll have, let's say, a $3 million project. And just for illustration, that could have a $2 million bond. And it's just weird because it's not your cash, it's their cash. That's where the magic comes into play.
And how likely is it that one insurance company or bank might buy the whole issue?
They could. We very seldom see, but we can kind of see the movement of what's happening. Let's say Piper Sandler buys it, the old Piper Jaffray. We see, they're going to be a bidder, but under them, their customers could be retail, could be people, could be insurance companies, could be anybody buying that bond. Could be Ellers buying some of that bond for our investment folks too. We buy bonds on our investment side for municipalities can buy other municipalities' bonds too. So prefer to buy taxable at that point, but other than that. So yeah, you can see kind of how they're trading. Mostly all we can see is, so the feds just sort of allow everything, the benchmark on transparency is kind of how 10%, at least 10% of the bonds sort of traded. That's sort of what everybody's responsible for pricing purposes. So the certificate of purchase there that, say, Piper Sandler would sign, it's just based on at least 10% of sort of the movement on that day, not everything. And by the way, they probably don't pre-sell everything on that day either, right? They put a lot of your bonds probably in inventory, and then sort of after the council approves the bond sale, then the rest of them the next day get, then they're trading like mad. Even though the closing's not for another 3 weeks, they're just rocking and rolling, trying to get this stuff off their plate. So when I come back,
Otherwise, they're holding the bag.
yeah, otherwise they're
Right.
kind of holding this, and they want to kind of move it and get. So they want to make sure they hit the mark too, the day before. Otherwise, they're left with holding bonds, which is fine. They've got the money to do that. So
Thank you.
yeah. If you have any more questions, run them through these guys, and I will answer them on email if I don't catch them here right now. So it's not a one and done. So let me know if you have any other questions.
So Todd, the only other thing I mentioned this to Jasper is you had made an assumption that there would be no prepayments because you're trying to be very conservative. No prepayments of assessments. And
Right.
generally we've seen 30 to 40% of our residents prepay their assessments. So that's actually in our favor, so to speak. But for your purposes, you put in no prepayments, just so you know that. So,
Yep.
but being conservative.
Yeah. Yeah, overall that will help some, but then you lose out on some interest over the long haul on assessment revenue, so it evens out a little bit.
A little bit, right. Yeah,
little
so you have that money in the bank, so to speak. It's maybe not earning as
That's-
much as,
yeah.
I mean, it's,
As the
interest
assessment rate.
Yeah, as the
sure,
assessment,
lose a
yeah.
little bit of that.
right,
So then are those prepayments escrowed and
right.
pay
The
the
put to
principal then?
the fund, the debt service fund to help, pay when levy taxes and other
Dedicated
assessments,
to-
dedicated.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're committed to the bond.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, it's not used for anything else. So
General
like,
fund right now.
I've tried to take some from there, but he won't let me. So like if you look at the Maple Crest, I think it's Maple Crest, there's like 20-some thousand left in that. And he says, well, until it's closed out, we can't touch that money. I'm like, oh, darn it. And there's like, 97,000 left from the Highland Road project. and we can't touch that either. And I'm like, oh, darn it. So just so you know, it's designated into
Debt
these.
service fund.
I tried, but.
Yeah, you wait till they're matured and then it can go for any other proper purpose or public purpose in the city. And typically, like Brian said, maybe while it was sitting, wasn't earning kind of interest that the assessments would be in non-prepaid. So sometimes the city puts in a little of their own money to make up the difference, and that's why we're able to kind of maybe even move it back into the general fund or something at the end of the day.
At the end, right.
Yeah, that's when sort of everything gets cleared out and everybody's made whole again. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. You got any other
All right.
questions?
No,
Okay.
I think we're good. So the only thing we need to do today probably is decide if we want to do the committee,
The pricing committee. yeah.
pricing committee. Can the pricing committee meet via phone? I mean, is that?
Yeah.
Okay,
I like
I mean-
us to meet like at 2:00 in the afternoon
Okay.
on phone, so like a
Okay.
Teams meeting, and so we'll just get everything all tallied up. And,
Yeah.
And I'll shoot sale day report to you like normal, like almost a little city council meeting, and then we just show you what's going on.
So we just need to bring that resolution to the March 20th meeting,
Okay.
I think, to
Yeah.
basically say we're doing the pricing committee or
Yep.
You
I think
can
right
do
now I've got a resolution, if you guys want to just approve, sort of this not to exceed 8 million on this. That would be kind of what I'm looking for the council.
that's
Okay.
on consent agenda. I think
Yeah.
the updated
Yeah.
pre-sale report.
Yeah.
Yep, just so we're not looking at 10 million.
Right.
anymore, so,
Yep.
I think that, yes.
Yep.
And then, so my suggestion might be, if it's okay with the council, that Kathleen and I be on that. Is that okay?
Of course.
I would suggest you, Peter, but I think you
I
might
think I'd
feel
have to come.
Conflict.
you might have a conflict. And so is that, so
Although you
when you
know
bring
what
that
you're doing these
resolution
things.
back, that the committee would be you, Jasper, myself, and Kathleen, and you?
You're
Is that-
comfortable with that?
Okay, all right. So we'll bring that back at the 20th or the?
Yep. I
Okay,
think the March 20th meeting.
okay,
Yep.
all right.
Great,
All right,
thanks.
thank you.
Yep.
So we'll move on to the fourth quarter financial update.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council. I'll try to just give the highlights. I don't know if anyone has any questions then on the submitted packet data. As far as, I think we hit the mark as far as our general fund, both on the revenue and expenditure side, even though 2022 was a little bit of a, not a roller coaster, maybe, but had some definitely interesting items during the year. Obviously, we were dealing with inflation, whether it's fuel and utilities. We had some different changes in staffing and to still come on the expenditure side, basically within less than 1% or whatever of go about 20,000 over what we budgeted, 25,000. That's I think pretty good performance financially. So I think we'll take that. And then I did mention in the memo and we were just sort of talking about the investment market, but basically on the revenue side, we hit all our marks there. The building permit revenue was actually even a little better than projected. It's just we have that paper loss for the investments, which I think everyone's seen their, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people probably have seen their portfolio on paper, maybe 5-6% down or whatever, and that's what we basically see here. We hold everything to maturity, so we actually should start seeing that. We have a decent amount of investments maturing in 2020, 24, so we should actually start to see those as they get closer to the maturity date come back closer to par, basically. So, yeah, otherwise, I think our general fund, we're sitting about, what are we had budgeted to spend down about 500 some thousand, and that's what we basically, are ending up doing as far as a cash, on a cash basis or whatever. So, otherwise, yeah, I think on the last page of the report is all the cash balances. That's on page 39. So I think there's no real funds, I think, that are of note that we're getting too low or anything there. Our water fund is a little higher than what we anticipated during 2022. I think a lot of that was based on our third quarter revenue. How
Yeah.
that came in.
Right.
So that's is what it is, I guess. But I don't know if anyone has any other questions on the financials. Maybe I'll just turn it over to council as far as.
Any questions?
That looked really good.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised once we
Yeah.
got through some of the different, year-end adjustments and the, all the different things you do to close the books. And I was like, okay, sure. I just wasn't sure how we were gonna turnout. There's just, obviously a lot of things. We did the compensation study in 2022. That was an adjustment that wasn't originally budgeted for. So I think, but it was able to fit in well once everything was all balanced up. So.
And the cable fund is high because we're going to be paying.
We haven't paid Midco yet. That'll come way down once we make the
Right.
payments there, whatever. So.
What do we do with the money in the emergency warning siren fund?
Or sirens.
So that is, I mean, I
That's a
think
lot
that
of
was,
sirens.
I think at some point, and I don't know if Chief Falls would know, I mean, I think the system was put in like in 06 or so, 05, 06 or 07, does that sound about right? So I guess that's coming up on, past 15 years, 20 years, so at some point, I guess I don't know how long a warning siren works, or like lasts, but there will
That's
be
a good question. I think that money was essentially set aside. Most cities incrementally install these things. Our city wanted to have coverage everywhere, which is a great way to do it. The problem is a lot of these things will come due, maintenance will come due. We do annual maintenance every year, which we budget for. This is more if we have a siren that fails and we have to replace it for the bigger expenditures. So at some point, we will definitely need those funds.
And that's not, we don't levy for those. They come in via development. So when a development comes in, they have to pay a warning,
siren fee.
Siren fee, basically, and it's based on per units. So this comes in from development fees.
Madam Mayor and Council, if I may just add to that comment to this. The county is actually in the process of looking at updated technology for the warning siren system.
Yep.
And that's county-wide. So likely we'll be using some of these funds to update once they pick a system. It'll just allow, in the old days when you would sound a siren, it was by zone, and every siren in that zone would be activated. Now they've got it dialed in a little bit better where if a tornado is coming through a certain path, they don't have to sound every siren in the county. They can just do by region.
Okay.
And that system is going to get even better and more accurate as the technology gets updated. So I'll certainly keep you posted once that happens in the probably next couple of years.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Other questions?
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on now to consent agenda items. They are approve our work session meeting minutes from February 6, 2023. B is approve our city council regular meeting minutes from February 6, 2023. Accept the resignation of police officer Evan Morgan effective February 8, 2023. D is approve our citywide tree sale with nonprofit group Tree Trust. E is a resolution to approve our claims, and F is a resolution to adopt the updated pre-sale report not to exceed that $8 million. Are there any you wish to remove for discussion? Okay, hearing none then, is there a motion to approve consent agenda items A through F?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Vickery. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 4-0. We have no public hearings, but we have business items. So we'll move on to award the contract for the purchase and installation of playground equipment at Jean Lanier Park, and we'll have that discussion now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. What you got here is the equipment is due, where the whole park's getting updated at Jean Lanier Park, and this will be phase one of a two-phase process that you'll see like we've been doing in all our parks. Once we have a playground set, or I should say equipment picked out, and a design that you guys like, then we can go back and look how it's going to lay out and then figure out the rest of it, which will be phase two, which will be the concrete enclosures that these will go into. Along with this park, it'll be the trail realignment and redo the new parking lot that's going in there to help make it ADA compliant. They're putting the parking lot as compared to doing the trail system that we had talked about. Actually, I think it's going to come in a lot cheaper to do it this way. If you remember, we were talking about having a long trail through there, kind of with a switchback and some resting areas and a couple parking spots down below. This will alleviate the long trail, a lot of removal of trees, and new fencing and stuff like that. So this will be come off of 44. Most of that work has already taken place. My public works staff went out last fall. We cleared all the trees out of the area. We removed all the black dirt soil we have brought in and compacted all the subsoil, clay, and we have rock based it, so it
Yeah.
is all set to go. This spring, when we continue, we will be in to remove the fencing around the tennis court, which will be replaced, the mesh itself. We will remove the court, which will need to be redone. We'll also remove all the other, the P-rock and the wooden edging in there that's in there to get everything prepped for this phase. What WSB has said it probably saves us about $175,000 to do it in-house and have somebody come in and do it. So, my crew did a great job out
Yeah,
there. We
they
should have
did.
it all prepped and
Yeah,
ready to go.
I saw
So,
that.
what this is going to be phase one, though, of the playground equipment. We sent it out to 4 different vendors. And what we had 2 back. One of them submitted 2 different designs. The other 2 had submitted, or that we had requested from, so they just do not have the time to
Wow.
do it this year. So they were very honest. They said, love to do it, but they just do not have the time. There's still a lot of COVID money being spent out there with the playgrounds and stuff. So we had set the price point at $85,000. All the 3 of them came in at that price point or below. I have listed out here what the equipment cost, the installation. So basically what I sent to you out was the design, the layout, to have you guys look at it. As before, you guys are going to make the final decision on what you want out there. I will tell you right now, from my personal opinion, the Minnesota-Wisconsin playground and design number 2 would be the 2 choices I would choose between. Just talking with my staff on what the other design 1 has for equipment out there. It's a little maintenance heavy and a lot of probably down the road replacement issues. So that would be our choice. So, but it's all up to you guys. So I'll leave it in your court to discuss what you guys like and what you guys want out there. So.
All right. Thank you, Gary. So, Ms. Lacey.
Oh dear, Gary, you've done so much work on this. I've just been in a situation where I've talked to several people in our community and was talking about, because I've been asked, what are they doing with this parking lot? What's going on? And I think a really important question was asked of me, which was, did we do any kind of study on the demographics of the people living around that area? And I said, I don't know, but I'll look into it. And the question that came up was Trillium, for example, and that area around it, there's not a lot of very little children. It's a little bit more mature neighborhood. And they said, why didn't they consider pickleball? And then this discussion was also kind of taking place a lot at the League of Minnesota Cities weekend. All these cities are putting in pickleball courts. And I'm not kidding, I probably talked to 15 people. And they said, what are we doing anyone that would go use a playground for little tiny children in that little section of town would go to the magnificent Disney World type regional park, the giant one, which is maybe a quarter mile away. So again, I'm coming.
So pickleball.
The tennis courts are going to be painted for
It's
pickleball.
the tennis
Yeah.
courts.
All our tennis courts and our basketball courts are all striped dual purpose. So this one right now does have 2 separate pickleball courts on it, striped in. We don't have the nets and stuff, and people bring their own. But they all are the 2 courts that we have in Hunter's Crest at Lyle Park are striped with 4 pickleball courts. The new half basketball court that we just did out on the island was striped and will be restriped again for basketball and pickleball. So everything, Mers Marsh is getting redone this year, and that one will be striped again too for pickleball. So everything's kind of a dual purpose there for everything. So
I get that, but for tennis players, they hate pickleball lines all over tennis courts. I'm just saying, is this $85,000? Is it? There would be people on a pickleball court every night. Will there be children playing in? I know, I'm sorry, I'm so late to this conversation, but it's just something I thought we could think about.
I think once the new equipment goes in, there will be a lot more children that play there, especially with Woodland Cove right behind it. I know a lot of families have asked why the park is so horrible. And there's people across the street that have kids that walk over to it, and they've reached out, like, when is this getting replaced? This park is horrible.
And Woodland
So,
Cove doesn't have a
Woodland
playground?
Cove has lots of playgrounds, but there's never enough for small children. They always want something new. And they will there's always people walking on Lotus, and they will definitely walk there and use the new park when it's available.
Great.
You would be
That's all I
surprised.
care about.
You'd be surprised how many kids are actually there too. We thought the same thing. But there is an influx of younger families moving into the neighborhood, and across the street there in the Stonebridge Hermitage area, they come across. They've actually wanted us to put crosswalks in and stuff on 44, which is completely, that's the county issue. We keep telling them that, but they do come across. There's a lot of people that, from that neighborhood that are using it too.
Well, that's wonderful. That's really all I'm.
Yep, and we've gotten a lot of, this is what brought this on. We have had a lot of people complaining about the condition of the equipment. It is old, it is, but it came into the ADA compliance issue came up, and that's what caused the delay in this. So, but there are a lot of people that use it, surprisingly enough. That's what, we were surprised too at that. But the demographics of that neighborhood, I think, yes, was all older, Jared, but now you're seeing a lot more of influx of the younger families with children. The lady that lives right by the park has young kids. So,
Great.
yep.
And so the tennis court will also be a pickleball court?
Correct. Just like it is now, it is striped that way. And I can tell you right now that if the tennis court went away, we'd have some very angry people there. I know there's a gentleman, I believe in the Lakeview area, that is very adamant that, don't take it away. We want it redone. It's really broke up, and we kind of patch best we can. And I know there's some people also in the Trillium neighborhood that play tennis on a regular basis there. So we don't want to just take it away and, not leave it that way. But, so that's why we kind of do the dual purpose. So
how long does a tennis court last?
Well, this one's been in since the mid 90s.
But we redid it. We've redone it since then.
Just surface wise, but
Yes,
never a
right.
total redone. Now
Right.
it's so cracked and broke up that we
Right.
redo it. We resurface them every about 7 to 8 years. They get repainted basically. So they'll come in, strip off the surface, clean them up, do the crack filling, and then resurface them again. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Have you had any experience with any of these vendors?
we've used all these vendors in the past. So Minnesota Wisconsin Playground did the, I believe, Douglas Park, Flagship Recreation did our structure for the shelter
The
at
picnic shelter.
Lyle. And they did the playground last year. They did the playground at, I think, both Friendship and Jennings. So all of them that we contacted, we've used in the past.
And you feel comfortable?
Yeah, with any of them, they're all, basically what, they're the vendor that's just selling and buying, but it's landscape structures or, what is it, the Little Tykes Playground or landscape designs. So they're, they're selling their, each one's got their own brand that they handle, but all the equipment we have, all different brands at all the parks, they're all meeting the specs that we want and stuff like that. So, yep, very confident with any of them. And if I may, just address Ms. Lacey's question. I know you talked about the playground itself, the old playground being used. The last two that we had, the one we removed ourselves and just junked, but now the contractor who's had the bid the last two times has kind of given us a break on that because he takes them and actually he takes everything out and donates them, and they ship them to third world countries. So they do get reused. We can't use them here because they don't, meet our specs, but they're these kids that have nothing out, third world countries are getting them. So it's great that they are getting reused.
All right, thank you.
All right. Questions? Any? Because I agree with Gary. I think the Minnesota Wisconsin playground looks, if I was a kid, that would look a lot more fun than the other one.
I asked my 3 kids, I showed them all the designs. They liked the Minnesota Wisconsin playground one. I also think for the value, we're getting way more equipment with less installation costs versus $10,000 more in installation costs and less fun looking equipment. So I go with Minnesota.
Peter, any?
Agreed. I wanted to play on it.
I would go with the kids.
This looks fun.
Peter was just telling me for a meeting that he really likes the swings. He likes to go out there with the kids. So.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. My only question is, have we ever looked into the grants from Hennepin County?
think we did that for the tennis courts, did we not?
David would probably be best to answer.
Yeah, because
I think it was the tennis courts that Nick did that way back in the day for the tennis courts, but yeah, I don't know if we ever looked at that or not.
So we should kind of keep an eye on that because it's not the right timing for this, but if we do have something that we know is coming up within, let's just say the next year or even 18 months, let's look at that because I think they have, I mean, even if it's 10 grand or 15 grand, it might be worth.
Is that through the county? I know years ago we got the
county
court or whatever.
Yeah, I would go through the county and just contact our commissioner, Kevin Anderson's office, and they can then direct us and give us the dates and the application or time dates and what it's for. I know it's for equipment, they have one, but I think they have one for this type of thing too. So we'll look into that. All right. So do I have a resolution then or a motion to award the contract for the purchase and installation of the playground equipment at the Jean Lanier Park to the Minnesota-Wisconsin Playground Company?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy. Any other questions or comments? This will be fun. We'll have to go out there and try it out, right? So this will go in like July?
Yeah, we're hoping at, midsummer. Like I say, there'll be spring work to do for my guys yet to remove everything that's there yet to do that. And then, have the company come in and whoever gets that, I'm assuming whichever vendor will come in, do all the site prep work, get the retaining walls put in, the new borders put in and stuff like that, and then get the parking lot and all that in. So we're probably looking at this probably late July, August is what we're hoping to get everything done, tidied up.
So we'll do, and it'd be fun to kind of do a ribbon cutting, kind of a special event kind of thing. So, and because it's a pretty big project, so.
One thing that we will probably have to bring back here and at Jennings Park will be what we, to get turf established here. There's no irrigation system here, and I know people are gonna hate this, but at Jennings Park, it's going to go on its second or almost third year now. We cannot get grass to grow, so unfortunately, there we're going to have to look at a well. But here we're going to have to look at what's going to happen. Here if we want to, put in a sprinkler system, we'll get some pricing on what it would cost to come and bring it back for further discussion. As this goes along. So if we want to try to get turf established, it's going to be tough otherwise. So
okay.
But we'll bring that back at a later date once we get everything kind of tidied up here with everything else.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Did we? All those in favor signify with aye.
Oh,
aye. All those opposed, motion passes 4-0. We got the motion and the second, and all right. So next is receiving the bids for the 23 street reconstruction and utility improvement project. That would be for the Morning View, Eastview area. So Ms. Fauski.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor, members of the council. I'm pleased to provide a summary of the bids received for the street reconstruction project, which includes the full street reconstruction, installation of curb and gutter, construction of storm sewer improvements, sanitary sewer improvements, full water main and water service replacement, and boulevard restoration of Eastview Avenue, Morning View Drive, Morning View Court, Westwood Avenue, and Westwood Drive. Bids were opened on February 15th. We had 18 potential prime contractor plan holders, and we received 14 bids. I'm trying to recall a time that I received that many bids, and I think mine was 12. So a very attractive project for contractors, and I'm pleased to report to the council that the lowest responsive bidder, Latour Construction, submitted a bid for $336,943.42, which was under our estimate when we look at adding in contingencies and indirects, we're $163,000 less than our pre-bid estimate. So great news to hear. It's $257,000 less than our feasibility estimate. So we kept trending down. We were glad to see these bids come in as they did. Latour construction, to my knowledge, hasn't worked in the city of Minnetrista. So we did go out and check with some other project managers to see what their experience was. Latour had several projects we checked with four project managers, and they've had Latour work in their communities and indicated that their work was satisfactory and they would be able to take on this type of project. So wanted to let council know that though they're new to Minnetrista, they're certainly not new to this scope of project.
What other cities have they worked in? Do you know?
I didn't get specific community. I know Rosemount was one of them. And I think the other ones were they're certainly in the metro area. I could provide council with a more comprehensive list when you consider award of contract, but we did, like I said, the three project managers that we reached out to work in several communities, so we didn't ask specific communities. So this is an informational piece for the council. If you look at page 117 of the packet, included in there is the estimated cost summary based as we move from feasibility to pre-bid to the low bid received. So this is a little bit different process than what we've typically done in the past. Typically, we ask the council to award contract at this time, but since we went through a little bit of pushback with some of the assessment, we thought that this process would be better to present council to receive the bids at this time and then consider award of contract with the assessment hearing. A little bit of a procedural difference, but in the whole grand context of this project, we don't anticipate this, this doesn't delay the project by any stretch of the imagination. So were there any questions regarding the bidding process?
No, but I do have a question. So we received these bids on February 15th or thereabouts. So, and we're not going to actually be awarding the contract until March 20th. Is there, could any of these contractors pull out?
That's a good question, Madam Mayor. The bids, per the contract documents, the bids are good for 60 days.
Okay.
And so they have to hold that within 60 days, or else if they were to pull, they submit bid bonds with this. So I've never had that experience, but certainly we look at providing some measures of security for the city so that there is, that they can't pull their bid after bid opening before award. So.
Okay.
So with that, I'd like to transition into the next item, which is to call the assessment hearing. So
let's hold on. We first want to receive the bids.
Correct. It was for informational purposes. I'm not
okay, so we
aware.
don't need to make a resolution? Okay, because it here's receive bids. Okay, all right. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Like I said, we changed the process on this, and I think for the better. But it's a different process than the council's used to and how we receive bids and award contract. So the item that we are asking council to take action on today is to call the assessment hearing for the reconstruction project. As I mentioned, we received bids and have calculated the proposed amount to be assessed. On page 144 of the council packet is a breakdown of the assessments that are being proposed, which is $10,000 for the residential assessments, $20,000 for Gillespie Park, and $23,000 for River Valley Church. The proposed assessments would be at a 20-year period for 5.5%, which is 2% over the rate that the city has to cover the city's administrative costs associated with doing this. If authorized this today, I keep saying this evening, if authorized to call the assessment hearing, the assessment notice would be published in the paper, and assessment letters sent to those proposed to be assessed for the project.
So do we have to send one to ourselves?
That's more just, what do you call it? Yeah, it's probably like a...
We typically
Moving
do,
funds
just to
between
keep
the
the
park
process whole. That's correct. We do, just because we do want to make sure that we've completed the process according to the statute, but that's, and we provide a breakdown. Mr. Grimm has provided a breakdown of what the annual payments would be for the assessments as proposed, so we can include those with the letters. I think people find that very valuable.
Yeah, it is. Except, so, real quick, the 20,000 that we're going to be assessed, that comes out of our park dedication
Yes,
fee
yeah.
fund, and we can prepay
we can
that.
prepay that. Yeah, I think
We
so.
don't want to pay interest to ourselves.
Yeah, we don't want to pay interest to ourselves. Just want to make that clear. All right.
So based on what's been proposed, we're looking at $853,000 to be assessed to benefiting properties adjacent to the project. The funding summary is provided on page 146 of your packet to show the breakdown of city funds and special assessments. With that, I welcome any questions that the council may have, but our recommendation is for the council to pass a resolution to declare the cost to be assessed, order the preparation of the proposed assessment, and call for the assessment hearing for the 2023 street reconstruction and utility improvement project.
So, again, a question. So in the past, we have also special assessed for storm sewers, so somehow we've broken that out. But here it just says that we're only special assessing for surface improvements. So somehow or other, remember,
certainly.
we have kind of assessed something for storm. I'm not saying assessing more than the 10,000. I'm just saying some of it should be attributed to storm sewer.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Members of council, on page 146, perhaps the better way to present the table would to have specially assessed amount merged between Schedule A and Schedule B to indicate
Right.
that 853,000 of the 1.273,
Whatever
or
the
however to split it.
yeah.
But yes, that's
split
correct.
up somehow.
Yep.
And then I'm also assuming that the 50,000 or almost 51,000 for a sewer comes out of our sewer fund, right?
Correct.
We're not bonding for that.
Correct.
Okay. And then the extra 26,000 on the water main, because we're only bonding 2 million for the water main, so that 26,000 comes out of our water fund.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
correct,
just,
for
just,
bonding for the
but
vast
I,
majority of it.
yeah. But in the past, we have assessed some for storm sewers, so I think we should be consistent.
Okay, I'll make a note of that, and perhaps with the consideration for award of contract, I can work with Finance Director Grimm to provide a more detailed table to show what
Yeah.
funds are being used versus bonding.
Right.
So
And I'm not suggesting we assess more than the 10,000, but it just has to be split up, so, all right.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? All right. So we do have a resolution for this, and it's declaring the cost and ordering the preparation and call for the hearing on the proposed assessments for the 2023 street, now, reconstruction projects. Did you want to go, we didn't really touch on the other project. So we do we do those separately?
Yes, ma'am.
Since they're kind of the same, but okay.
They're
We'll-
the same, but because they are 429 projects and
We have to do
assessed
separate
separately, I would
resolutions.
recommend that we have
Yeah.
them separate
All right.
actions.
So that resolution would be for city project number 01-23. That's for the Morning View area, Eastview. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Vickery. Any further questions? Discussion? All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 4-0. So next we move on to the North Arm Fielding Trail, that area. Okay,
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Similar to the last project, I'll just provide a summary for receiving the bids and then take questions on that and then move on to the assessment hearing component. The 2023 Street Improvement Project, City Project 0223, includes full depth reclamation of the pavement and minor enhancements to the storm drainage system on North Arm Drive, Trails End Road, and Trails End Circle. Project also includes partial replacement of deficient curb and gutter, mill and overlay of the pavement, and minor enhancements to the stormwater drainage system on Timber Trail. Bids for this project were open on February 8th. We had 9 potential prime contractors and received 9 bids for this project. We've enclosed a bid tabulation for the council's review. The lowest responsive bidder was from Asphalt Surface Technologies Corporation out of St. Joseph, Minnesota, for $935,786.27. Aztec has worked in the city of Minnetrista on pavement maintenance projects. So we did reach out again to some project managers to ask what their experience has been with Aztec on reclamation and mill and overlay projects, and we've received feedback from some of them. Again, I didn't get anything specific. I know they've worked in Osseo on our street reconstruction project. Other than that, I don't have names of communities, and I can provide that should the council consider a work contract on March 20th. But I did receive feedback from several project managers that that Aztec has performed a similar scope of work in other communities and able to perform this type of project. Included in your packet on page 150 is a summary of the street improvement project costs through feasibility and lowest bid. And I am pleased to report to the council that the low bid received. The total project cost is under what we originally budgeted for the project, and very happy to see that. We got a lot of good bidders on this project, and as I mentioned in the packet, no action is required, and we would be bringing the award of contract to the March 20th meeting in conjunction with the assessment hearing for the project.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments?
I do have a question on where these are coming in under what you thought. Are you basing what you thought it would cost on kind of the inflated things after COVID and all that? Are things settling down after that?
That's a good question. If we could figure out how these contractors are bidding them, it would be really nice to say we were on the money with our estimate. We're always happy when projects come in under bid. When we look at pricing right now, there's still quite a bit of volatility with pipe pricing because of components necessary to make the pipe. And so with that, we tend to put a larger contingency on those numbers than we would on others. Oil is certainly, it's not as volatile, but we certainly are seeing higher oil prices for that. So we tend to be a little conservative in our estimates because I never want to come back to the council and say we need additional budget for these projects. What we do is we take a look at what has happened with bidding, both historic and current, and we have some specialists in the company that assist us with these cost estimates that were in the construction industry to help us look at what pricing we're using in our estimates to see if we're in line. So you'll, as you see, as we move from feasibility to pre-bid, we do adjust those numbers based on what we're seeing, just so that the council wouldn't be taken by surprise should numbers come in a little higher, which is what we were anticipating for this project. But fortunately, there's other components into bidding. If the contractor has other projects in the vicinity, and they are able to, you get better prices with that if they have a crew nearby. So there's a lot of other components that we're not able to speculate on that can go into contractor pricing.
Thank you.
So my only concern is we had the pre-bid cost for the storm sewer improvements at $190, and it came in at $120. So it's a $70,000 difference. Any comments there? Any concerns there? Or Gary or anybody?
I think when we're looking at, I'll just take a quick stab at this, and Gary can certainly come in and give his 2 cents as well. When we're looking at it, I think we were being a little conservative in our numbers for what we were expecting for pipe pricing, and perhaps they already have a supply of pipes.
Oh, okay.
And then we also switched from our, oh no, that was with pre-bid, so we still already had that incorporated. So it's a matter of supply and what we were seeing with, because fly ash was one of the components of concrete pipe. That was something that we had anticipated would be a higher cost, and it turned out not to be.
Okay.
I don't know if Gary has anything else to add.
Well, I think too, it all kind of depends on the company, and if some of these companies have to outsource some of the work, and if they
Okay.
keep it in-house, makes a big difference. So, I mean, if they're bringing in a separate company, or if they have their own utility crew doing it, it'll make a big difference too in the pricing.
The pricing, sure.
So, I mean, if they can keep everything in-house, that way, you're not paying another company to come in and do it. I know some of the companies have subcontractors to do certain work and stuff like that. So most of like concrete work is always probably going to be outsourced. But some of these contractors might not be big enough to do larger utility jobs, for certain, or trying to get everything done. They might bring in another subcontractor where a bigger contractor would have everything
that
in-house.
In-house, yeah. Have more control over it as well. Okay. Okay, if no other questions, then we'll move on to the resolution to declare the costs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. On page 161 of your packet, we've included a summary of the proposed assessment rates that's been discussed with the council for this project. That's $10,000 per unit for residential properties, and that consists of 43 units for the project. And then for the Burl Oaks Golf Club, for their 3 properties out there, we're proposing a total of $45,000 for assessment through there. Similar to the other project, the proposal is for a 20-year assessment period at 5.5%, which is 2% over the current rate that the city can acquire to accommodate for administrative costs. Looking at the proposed assessment amount for the total project is $475,000.
And we'll split that up again.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'll make a note of that as
Yeah.
well. So again, on page 162, the funding summary, the second table on that page, we would look at splitting out that $475,000 between Schedule A, which is the surface or road improvements, excuse me, and Schedule B, which is the storm sewer improvements.
I'm assuming we'd still be okay at the 20%. I know the 429, you need at least a minimum of 20% assessment, and I'm assuming that's just for the road project or road surface, or can that be for the entire project?
Well, I think either way we're sitting pretty. I think
We're sitting
on this one,
okay.
then on the morning view one, we're actually a little closer to that.
Yeah,
that
so I mean, you'll have to
20%.
keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Okay, so for the 429 process, when you do special assessments, you have to, by law, state, you have to assess at minimum of 20%. And you usually want to go a little bit higher than that, so you have a little bit of a cushion in there. And the other reason you have to do that is because the bond people also want to know where your money is coming from and all of that. But by state statute, we have to assess a minimum of 20%. So just so you know, that's just, all right, thank you. No other comments?
How does that work then with where you have to have fair value to the homeowners?
So in this case, what we did back last summer, we hired a company to actually do an appraisal and tell us, okay, what would be the maximum that we could assess and the benefiting properties would see that benefit. And so they came back and they said it would be between 9,000 and 11,000. And so the council said, we'll do the 10,000. And that still then provided that 20%. So in both cases, the benefit equals the assessment or below the benefit. And then we're also we're still at the 20%.
And will we use this for projects in the next couple of years or something?
We could, depending on the housing market and all of that, you have to kind of, we were hoping that this special appraisal would last a couple years, but again, we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens out there with the economy and everything. So,
Thank you.
okay.
Madam Mayor, that's all I had for this. Our recommendation is for council to approve the resolution declaring the cost to be assessed, ordering the preparation of proposed assessment, and calling for the hearing on the proposed assessment for the 2023 Street Improvement Project, City Project 02-23.
Thank you. And that assessment hearing would be March 20th as well. All right. Is there a motion to declare those costs? And as the resolution is stated in our packet, I won't go over it again.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Vickery. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Refkin made that second. Further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 4-0. So that concludes our business items, and we'll move on to staff reports.
I have none.
None? Paul, anything?
You not?
Nothing? Okay. It's too quiet over there in the police department?
Sort of alone by
There's
himself.
nothing I should report. Just business as usual.
Well, we had the DTF luncheon.
We did?
Yes, so
We
Paul and I went to that, the Drug Task Force annual luncheon. It was just good to hear everything that they've been doing, and lots of, do you have any of those stats? I haven't gotten that email yet. I know Chief Farniak said he'd send it out.
I don't currently, but that will be part of my annual report
Okay,
presentation, which will come in probably March or April.
okay,
So I'll be happy to share that at that time.
yep, that would be
So-
good.
They're definitely staying busy at the task force.
Right, they are. And that's a collaboration between, how many different police, 3 or 4 police
I believe we're
departments?
up to 5. So
5?
it's us, Orono, Medina,
Maple,
West Hennepin.
West
And we
Hennepin.
just, South Lake will be joining July 1st.
Yep, and Hennepin County,
And the sheriff's office.
In the
Yes,
sheriff's
They
office.
actually run it.
yeah,
So they have a sergeant in charge of it, and then a deputy assigned to that as well.
right,
So we're hoping that there aren't a lot of changes to the forfeiture processes going forward, because that would certainly threaten task force, because it's essentially self-funded
right,
through forfeiture funds.
okay,
But we'll keep you up to date on that.
thank you. Okay then, Allison, did you have anything?
No.
Nothing? All right, council. We'll start with Ms. Lacy, sure.
I would just say I went to the planning commission meeting yesterday. It was very interesting. I think we're gonna see a lot of conversation regarding solar panels in the future. And again, there was an issue with proper screening that we kind of discussed, but that's really all I have to.
And they had a work session prior
Work
to that?
session.
Yep.
Yeah,
Good.
and so, there was someone sitting here, and someone on the planning commission said, oh, little, 2-foot trees, and I thought, no, that's not gonna cut it. But it's interesting, because if you put this giant solar panel in the middle of your property, you have every right to do that. It just, I think it's, if you're infringing on the beauty of the community or your neighbor's views, then the topic of screening comes up. But I think we're gonna see a lot of discussion on solar panels going forward.
Okay, and maybe we need to take a look at our ordinance and define screening a little bit
Yeah.
better so that it's clear to everybody and the applicants as well.
Yeah, the
But-
planning commission was suggesting a fence, and I thought, I don't know that a giant fence is any more attractive, so.
But that's screening,
Right.
and that's what we were saying on the other one. We were
Right.
saying, well, they could put up a fence, or they could put up a barn and paint
Yeah.
it pink if they
Right,
wanted to.
right.
So I think the screening is,
It's touchy.
yeah. So, and there'll have to be a balance, I think. Yeah.
I think natural screening is preferable to
Yeah.
unnatural screening.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, but I don't think we can dictate
Yeah.
that,
yeah, I think it,
because each
yeah,
property is unique, so
Right.
there's some areas
Yeah.
where a fence would make
Yeah.
total sense,
Yeah.
and there's others where obviously trees are preferred, so.
and then there's
I don't-
cost,
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't
And
wanna
cost,
dictate
yeah.
that for anybody's property.
yeah. But- Okay, good. Peter, anything?
Well, I attended my first meeting with the Pioneer Sarah Creek watershed, and that was really interesting. And they, of course, are responsible for a lot of the water bodies here in Minnetrista. Their big news affecting us is that this spring they plan to put all of them in the whale tail
Okay.
lake. And so that's a big project. We're pretty excited about that. And then this fall, they're going to work on an education program for using salt. And I guess that's a real problem for the watershed. And,
All watersheds. All water bodies, yeah.
Yeah, they were explaining the cities and most commercial fires know how to minimize that, but it's the homeowners or the businesses that don't want anybody to slip and fall that
Right.
cause the issues. So that was very interesting. And then Councilmember Lacey and I, of course, attended the League of Minnesota Cities training.
I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, it is.
Exceeded my expectations.
Good.
And it was absolutely worth every bit of $350 or whatever the city paid. It was really fantastic.
Yeah, learned a lot.
Good.
Realized how much more there was to learn.
Yeah. The more you learn, the more you know you don't know.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yep.
Yeah, good. All right.
Lisa, myself, and Jasper met with Chief Peterson and Chief Anderson yesterday just to get up to date with Mound Fire and St. Bonnie Fire and just discuss how their training and everything is going. I will be attending the City on the Hill meeting on the 9th still. So.
Right. Well, I guess those are my meetings too. So, so that's all I have to report to. So with that, I motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. 4-0. Thank you very much and have a good rest of the day.